In the quiet suburbs of Bel Air, Texas, just outside of Houston, a seemingly perfect family faced a tragedy that shook the community to its core. It was a warm summer night on July 28, 2016, when the tranquility of the Armstrong household was shattered by gunfire. This is the story of the tragic murders of Dawn and Antonio Armstrong, a case that left many questions unanswered and a family torn apart. Dawn and Antonio Armstrong were a picture-perfect couple, admired by everyone who knew them. Antonio, a former NFL linebacker, had played for the Miami Dolphins before injuries cut his career short. Not one to be defeated by setbacks, he transitioned to a successful career in the Canadian Football League, and later became a motivational speaker and fitness coach. Dawn, his supportive and loving wife, co-owned a popular gym in Bel Air with him. Together, they raised 3 children: Josh, Dawn's son from a previous relationship, Antonio Jr., known as AJ, and their daughter Kara. On that fateful night, the Armstrong family went to bed like any other. The home security system was activated, securing the house. Around 1:40 a.m., a panicked AJ, then 16 years old, called 911.
Houston 911, do you need medical, police, or fire?
Going to be police. He's whispering, advising he just heard gunshots in the parents' room.
Is this a house?
Yes.
And your name?
AJ?
Any medical attention needed?
I heard gunshots, so I don't really know.
In your parents' bedroom?
Yes. How did you get into my house?
Reporting that he had heard gunshots. His voice was frantic as he told the dispatcher that he had not yet checked on his parents, but had seen their bedroom door slightly ajar, an unusual sight. When police arrived, they found no signs of forced entry. The home security system indicated that no one had entered or exited the house since the family had gone to bed. Inside the master bedroom, officers discovered a horrifying scene. Dawn was dead, having been shot in her sleep, with a pillow covering her head. Antonio, still clinging to life, was rushed to the hospital but succumbed to his injuries shortly after. The weapon used in the murders was Antonio's own .22 caliber pistol, found in the house. A cryptic note was found in the kitchen, reading, "I've been watching you for some time. Get me." The message added a layer of mystery to the case, suggesting the possibility of an outsider. However, with no signs of a break-in, suspicion quickly turned inward. AJ, who had made the emergency call, was immediately taken in for questioning. Despite his young age, investigators noted his composed demeanor and apparent lack of emotion. He did not cry over his mother's death or his father's critical condition, which struck the officers as odd. During the interrogation, AJ described his relationship with his parents as mostly good, but admitted to typical teenage conflicts, especially with his mother. He recounted showing off his father's gun to a friend weeks earlier, which explained a bullet hole in the ceiling of his room. However, the police were skeptical, believing the shot had been fired more recently. Further evidence pointed to AJ. A burnt spot on the carpet near the stairs, which smelled of gasoline, suggested an attempt to start a fire. AJ denied any involvement, but the circumstantial evidence continued to mount. Despite a lack of physical evidence like gunpowder residue or blood on AJ, the police charged him with 2 counts of capital murder. The community was stunned. The Armstrongs were beloved, and the idea that their own son could be responsible was almost too much to bear. AJ's family, especially his grandmother and his older brother, stood by him, convinced of his innocence. They painted a picture of a troubled but loving teenager who couldn't possibly have committed such a heinous act. As the case moved to trial, the defense introduced alternative theories. One was that Antonio had been involved in illicit activities, specifically a prostitution ring, and had received threats from dangerous associates. This theory was quickly dismissed by the prosecution as lacking credible evidence. Another potential suspect was AJ's older brother Josh, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and had a history of violent thoughts. Josh's alibi was shaky, and the defense argued that his mental illness and previous threats made him a more likely suspect. However, Josh was eventually ruled out, as there was no solid evidence connecting him to the crime. The prosecution's case hinged on AJ's motive and opportunity. They argued that AJ had grown increasingly frustrated with his parents' strict rules and expectations. A search of AJ's phone revealed messages to friends expressing anger and resentment towards his parents. One message read, "I'm so tired of their rules. I just want to be free." This, combined with the evidence found at the scene, painted a picture of a teenager pushed to the edge. AJ's defense team countered with a lack of concrete evidence. No fingerprints on the gun, No gunpowder residue on AJ, and no bloodstains were found. They'd argued that the police had rushed to judgment, focusing solely on AJ without thoroughly investigating other possibilities. The defense also pointed out that the home security system could have been tampered with, suggesting that an intruder could have entered without triggering the alarm. The trial was emotionally charged, with family members testifying for both the prosecution and the defense. AJ's grandmother, who had raised him after his mother's death, described him as a loving and caring boy who struggled with the loss of his parents. She tearfully pleaded with the jury to consider the possibility of his innocence. In contrast, the prosecution brought in experts to discuss AJ's behavior and the psychology of a teenager under extreme stress. They argued that AJ's apparent lack of emotion was a sign of his guilt, rather than shock or trauma. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury was left with a difficult decision. The case was not clear-cut, and reasonable doubt lingered. In the end, the jury could not reach a unanimous verdict, resulting in a mistrial. AJ was released on bail, and the case remains unresolved. The community continues to grapple with the tragedy, and the Armstrong family is left in limbo, seeking justice for Dawn and Antonio. The case of the Armstrong murders is a haunting reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the mysteries that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect families. Years have passed since that tragic night, but the wounds are still fresh for those who knew and loved Dawn and Antonio. Their story is one of love, loss, and the enduring search for truth in the face of unimaginable pain. As the investigation continues, the hope remains that one day the full truth will come to light, and the Armstrong family will find the peace they so desperately seek.